Today, we're talking about Sony's Q3 2023 earnings. We have a lot to go over and discuss here. Some really important things where Sony is not only telling us how they performed during the holiday season, which I don't know if it's that important compared to what Sony is saying about what we can expect for the next year for PlayStation. Don't get me wrong, it's still important, but there are a couple of things coming out of this earnings report that are definitely making the rounds, seeing some headlines, catching people's attention, understandably so. And I kind of want to dive deeper into what Sony is saying about what to expect going forward. So we're going to start here. Well, not actually with this article, but I just want to let you know that Sony has revised their total sales expectation for fiscal year 2023. For those who aren't aware, Sony was planning to sell 25 million PS5s, which is insane because that is a new record, like by far and away a new record. And by the way, sorry if you see some freezing or hitching with the video. I don't know what's going on. It's just happening, so just bear with it. But yeah, that 25 million would be a new record. It would be insane for them to hit that. But Sony was very bullish about it, making it clear that they really think they're going to hit that 25 million. Now, they have until March 31st, 2024 to hit 25 million. They now realize they're not hitting 25 million. So they revised it and they basically said, okay, we think we're going to hit 21 million. So obviously it's not good that they're not going to hit their projected target. It's no matter which way you slice it. It's like, hey, we're going to hit 25 million. Actually, sorry, no, we're not. We're going to miss it by 4 million. Not great. You know, or I think maybe they're striving for 20 million PS5 sold. So there could be, basically they're saying we are probably going to miss our target by a good 4 to 5 million, which yeah, it's not a great look, but make no mistake, you know, selling 20 million PS5s in a fiscal year is very, very good. There's no denying that, but you know, maybe we are beginning to see some slowdown. I think it's safe to say that we're seeing a little bit of slowdown with PS5 console sales. And so you have to wonder what Sony's planning on doing to correct that. So I just wanted to make everybody aware that Sony gave us that information. And they also made it clear that they are entering the, what they're saying is the latter half, right, of the PS5's life cycle. I think some people are going to feel a little bit disappointed to hear that because they feel like, well, this generation feels weird, right? Like it feels like it hasn't even really begun. I feel that way too. I think the PS5 generation in general so far has just been kind of weird, pretty abnormal. A lot of unexpected things occurring between the time these consoles were announced up until now. But yeah, if Sony really is targeting 2028 as the PlayStation 6 release, then yeah, we are entering the latter half of this console generation. But that's not necessarily a bad thing because that's usually when things really start to pop off, right? At least that's the hope and the expectation. But I want to turn your attention to this article here where one of the major things that Sony revealed during their earnings report is that apparently they do not plan to release any new major existing franchise titles next fiscal year, which ends March 31st, 2025. So this is, let me translate this for you. Sony's making it known that we are not going to be playing any games from any of their existing franchises between now and March 31st of next year. While that may sound very disappointing, it is disappointing, to be honest. There's no way around that. That is disappointing. It's also not really unexpected because it's like, think about it. We're in February of 2024. I mean, is anybody really thinking that Sony's going to announce Ghost of Tsushima 2 in May or June of this year and be like, oh, by the way, it's out this November? I mean, maybe. Like, I don't want to say that you're insane or anything for expecting that, because to be fair, Sony, I mean, we don't really know anything about their first party except for Concord and Wolverine, right? So I'm not saying I blame anybody for having like higher expectations from Sony. I have higher expectations from Sony. Like, I think this kind of sucks, frankly, right? Like that they're just flat out saying this, but it is the reality that like these games are just not ready. So Hiroki Totoki, I'm going to give you the full quote. He says, regarding first-party software, we aim to continue to focus on producing high-quality works and developing live service games. This is what Sony Group President, Chief Operating Officer, and Chief Financial Officer Hiroki Totoki said, but while major projects are currently under development, we do not plan to release any new major existing franchise titles next fiscal year. So it's a bitter pill to swallow, man. Like, it's just to have it kind of laid out. But here's the thing, existing. So obviously a lot of people are like, whoa, hold on now. That means we could be getting new games, and we are. We're getting a new AAA IP in Concord. Concord's releasing this year. So that's something, right? But that's obviously not what people really, I don't want to say it's not what they want. It's just people expect something different, something more from PlayStation, frankly. And so the next question that we have to kind of look at here, next question in line is, all right, so we're not going to get Ghost of Tsushima this in the next year. The next fiscal year, we're not going to get anything God of War, Horizon related, Spider-Man, nothing already established, no Astro, nothing like that. So the question is, okay, what about new IP? We're getting Concord. What are we getting anything other than Concord? Are we? Here's the question I really am trying to ask. Are we being told by Sony essentially that the only new game we're going to get from their studios between now and March 31st next year is Concord? Because if that's the case, that's incredibly unfortunate. Like, that I would say that's borderline unacceptable, because it's like, what? But at the same time, I have a theory on how Sony plans to mitigate this, if that is, and I have to emphasize, if that's the case. The reality is, I don't know. Neither do you. Like, no, only Sony really knows if they have a little something extra up their sleeve to release between now and March. I want to say they have to have something, because that's crazy. I mean, it's February now, and they're basically saying, like, don't expect anything major from any existing properties for the next 13 months. That's a pretty intense thing for Sony to just be flat out saying. I'm glad they're letting us know. I appreciate the honesty where it's just like, yeah, sorry, like, we're not going to have anything. But you have to imagine, like, okay, so you guys are going to have something though, right? Like something new. It'd be pretty insane if they didn't. But let me move on to my theory and let you know how I think Sony plans to mitigate this. So I'm of the belief that Sony could absolutely get away with having a weak year for first-party output. I mean, people think that 2023 was a weak year, which I kind of understand that. The only like major release from Sony was Spider-Man 2. We got Horizon Call of the Mountain, of course, and some DLC for Horizon Forbidden West. But realistically, the only major release was Spider-Man 2. Spider-Man 2 essentially carried PlayStation Studios for all of 2023. Now, with 2024, I think it's safe to say that if Concord is the only first-party game we get from Sony, you know, like as in like a big AAA game, I mean, sure, we could look at like Helldivers 2. I guess that counts. It is PlayStation Studios, but they don't own Arrowhead. It's worth just pointing that out. I don't think Concord and Helldivers 2, frankly, are going to be enough to carry the entire year, especially looking all the way to March of next year. So what Sony could plan to do here is make major announcements. I am of the belief that the way Sony can keep fans and gamers happy and not feeling so, I guess you could say, annoyed or frustrated with their lack of first-party output over the next year or so is show the roadmap, show the pipeline. Sure, this game, whether that be Ghost of Tsushima 2, Sony Santa Monica's new IP, Sony Bend's new IP, whatever, Naughty Dog's next game, sure, these games are not coming out this year. They're not coming out in January, February, or March of next year either. But we're showing you them. And they are coming out maybe sometime in 2025, maybe even 2026. Now, you show a few of those, not just one, but 1, 2, maybe 3. I really do believe that that is going to completely change people's perception of PlayStation. You know, I think that that will be enough to hold people over and make it so that, well, okay, yeah, it sucks that We're not getting any like major new first party titles for the next year. And there's no way around that. That just sucks. But it's the reality of the game development pipeline that Sony has right now at their studios with these massive, colossal AAA games. They just need more time. It's just a fact, you know? But I think, you know, Sony coming out and showing these projects, allowing fans to get excited about them and anticipate them, even if they are a year or two or more away, I think that will be the biggest difference maker. Because think of it this way. What's the other option? The other option is Sony comes out and says this to us right now. Like, hey guys, we don't have any major titles from existing franchises. And let's be real, we're not getting the Sony Bend new IP or the, you know, Naughty Dog new IP this year. It's just not happening. So, you know, we're going to get Concord and maybe Fair Games or something. So then the other option is, oh, and by the way, we're not going to have any major announcements for you. We're going to have a bad showcase this year. We're not going to show you any of these projects. That would be truly just dire, in my opinion, where it's like if Sony were to go the next 13 months by just saying, here are our partner studio games, here's Concord, and we're not showing you any other first party projects. That would be dire because it's like, what is going on? You know, like, are you telling me these games are targeting like 2027 and 2028? That would be wild. It would be difficult to believe that and accept that. So I'm open to seeing how this pans out. I don't know. Maybe that is what Sony's going to do. But I thought that this was a really important thing to cover because, again, I want to make it clear, this is not a good look. It just isn't. It sucks, right? Like, I play on PlayStation because I look forward very much to these big first-party titles from Sony. And don't get me wrong, like, I'm very happy with what they're providing me now. I'm very happy with Helldivers 2, right? We're getting Rise of the Ronin. We're getting FF7 Rebirth and Stellar Blade. And so I'm not trying to make it sound like there aren't games to play. There absolutely are games to play. But there's just no denying that Sony's first party, it's like, what? There's just nothing but question marks. And it's not necessarily reassuring, although I do appreciate the honesty to hear like, yeah, sorry, there's going to be more question marks for now. But I have to imagine that Sony is going to show some of these games. It would be insane if they didn't. But there's another really important thing here that I want to go over with you guys just to be as comprehensive as I can about these things that we're learning about PlayStation and their internal studios right now. And so we're heading over to a report from VGC where it says PlayStation's new chairman says that studios need to improve when it comes to business. Now, this is... See, this is... we are beginning to see the age of Hiroki Totoki for as long as he's going to be the interim CEO. We're seeing the transition from somebody like Jim Ryan being the CEO to now Hiroki Totoki. And so let's go over what he has to say. It says PlayStation... Actually, let me fix this a little bit here so we get a better look at it. It says PlayStation's new chairman and Sony's current president was asked for his early assessment working directly with the games business during an earnings call on Wednesday and told listeners he believes its studios can improve when it comes to business. Sony president, COO, and CFO Hiroki Totoki assumed the role of chairman of Sony Interactive Entertainment in October ahead of CEO Jim Ryan's retirement from April 1st. Totoki will act as the interim CEO of Sony Interactive Entertainment, sharing his initial impressions from his first 4 months working directly with Sony Interactive Entertainment. The executive said he made a point to attend management meetings and visit PlayStation's game development studios to get a better understanding of the business. So it says the Sony president said that while he was impressed with the motivation and creativity of studio workers, he believed there was, quote, room for improvement, end quote, when it came to how they invest money and plan development schedules in order for the overall business to achieve its growth goals. Sony announced strong PS5 sales of 16.4 million for the first 3 quarters of the fiscal year. However, while the games business revenue was up 15% year on year, operating profit was down significantly at 25.9%, which Sony said was partly due to a decrease in sales and increase in losses from hardware due to promotions. So just worth pointing out here, this is the struggle that Sony is facing. They are struggling to find that profitability. Profit margins being down by over 25%, no matter which way you slice it, is just not good. Obviously, investors are not going to be happy about that. Sony's not going to be happy about that. They're going to feel like they have to do something to correct that, right? So it says here, it's been about 4 months since I became chairman, and I'm trying to demonstrate leadership and have as many meetings as possible with the management team, Totoki told media and investors listening to the web call via a translator. I've also visited studios, and everyone is working really hard to fulfill their responsibility to try to optimize the business, and I understand that. But overall, growth and sustainable profitability for increasing margins, how will that translate to these goals? I don't think people understand that deeply. I think that is the problem of the organization. So as far as I'm concerned, I try to understand what is happening in the company, in the industry, and also from the perspective of analysts, and try to explain that in a transparent manner so that people can recognize and notice these issues so that we can have a harmonized approach going forward. The executive continued, people who work in the studios have very high motivation. They're very highly motivated. They're very good people, and they have great creative minds and knowledge of live streaming. However, having said that, when it comes to the business, I think there is room for improvement, and that's down to how to use the money, the schedule of development, and how to fulfill one's accountability towards development. Those are my frank impressions. I will continue to engage in dialogue with the people so that we can find the right way to proceed. Now, this is very, very interesting because obviously it's very wordy, but let me basically break down what Hiroki Totoki's saying. Hey, I love the work that PlayStation Studios is doing. I love the dev teams. I love how motivated they are. I love how much they care. They're spending too much money. And we need to figure out how we can maintain this efficiency to the best of our ability while spending less money. We need to figure out how can we maybe achieve certain timelines more efficiently. This is a little bit worrisome, guys. I'll tell you why. This is worrisome because it seems like under Jim Ryan, PlayStation Studios had a lot of flexibility in terms of how much money they could spend for their budgets and the time frames, and just basically allowed to just kind of, okay, go at your own pace. Do what you got to do. Hey, you need that much money to make that happen? Okay. Right? And it's all in the name of, well, these games are expected to sell millions of copies, in most cases 10 plus million, or even more than that. But things are shifting now in the industry where you can kind of, look, I can understand, like, I'm a little bit worried, but I can understand where Hiroki Totoki is coming from, where it's like, look, if we're investing this much money consistently and we're allowing games to take this long to develop, but our our profitability is like down by over 25%, it's just clear that something has to change. And so there's something else I do want to mention here, because I think there are going to be headlines written up about this as well. I've already seen like headlines totally not like misconstruing, but just trying really hard to make it seem like something is like, oh my God, Hiroki Totoki said that Sony's going multi-platform. So, and unfortunately it's not covered in this article, but I'll just let you know, Hiroki Totoki was asked about that, like PlayStation's approach to multi-platform. Guys, I'm sorry, I don't know why the computer keeps freezing like this or the screen keeps freezing like this, but he was asked, like, what are you going to do with the multi-platform stuff, right? Like, what's going on there? And pretty much, I'm paraphrasing what he said, is Sony's going to continue to pursue that with PC. He didn't say they're going day and date with all their games. He's just saying that he thinks there's still a lot of good opportunity there to find more profitability, to gain more money. And this is nothing new. This is nothing new at all. This is what Sony's been doing. And honestly, with the success of Helldivers 2, hugely successful for Sony on PC, I'm sure Sony's like, okay, let's keep going. Let's keep pressing down this path. A lot of people are jumping to conclusions that this means single player games are going to go day one on PC. I don't know. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. I'm not on board with the notion that Sony's just going to flip the switch and say, yep, we're doing it. We'll have to wait and see. But yeah, I mean, amidst all of the rumors with Microsoft and Microsoft bringing some of their games to PS5, when I saw some of these headlines, people were very much coming to the conclusion like, oh, Sony's releasing games on Xbox. And it's like, no, that's not at all what Hiroki Totoki's saying. He's just simply saying that we're going to continue to pursue PC as a viable way to make more money and find more profitability. And he also alluded to other ways in which they believe they can maybe make their games more profitable without having to necessarily rely on other platforms. At least that's kind of what he alluded to. So just wanted to cover that as well. But yeah, man, a lot of really interesting stuff here coming from Sony's earnings report. And I guess my conclusive thoughts here are simply this. Sony is not going to have the strongest year for 2024 with first party output. And we could even see the first quarter of 2025 have the same thing happen where it's just not looking very strong from PlayStation Studios. But I think the best way Sony could make up for that is, okay, if you can't release games because they're not ready, then you need to show them. You need to show them. You need to get the fans excited. You need to basically promise fans that, hey, even though this year's not going to be that great, it's okay because we have a lot we're cooking, right? We have a lot we're working on, and you have plenty of reason to look forward to the future of the PS5. Now, when it comes to what Hiroki Totoki is saying here about the studios, I think this is kind of an inevitability at this point. We see what's happening in the industry. We see that major AAA game development is becoming less and less sustainable. Sony's not immune to that, so Sony has to find solutions. And so it's hard to determine what Hiroki Totoki might do as the interim CEO, what he might change, but it's clear that he's trying to convey to the studios, such as Insomniac, Santa Monica, Naughty Dog, you name it, you guys need to be more business savvy, basically, is what he's saying. You guys have to have a better understanding of the business side of it, because we don't want to interfere with the creative side, but we need you to have a better understanding of that, so that way we can help, we can achieve these goals of trying to not have periods of time where we're just basically unprofitable. It's a tough balancing act here, man. You got the business side, you got the creative side, you got the consumer side, and right now things are in flux at PlayStation, and you can tell that there's still a lot they have to figure out. And so, we've been so focused on all these rumors and everything going on with Microsoft, understandably so. But yeah, things are definitely not perfect over at Sony or at PlayStation, and they're not dire either. It's just that they're in flux. Things are changing, and there's some problems, and they have to figure out solutions to those problems. And so we'll have to just continue to be patient and see how the rest of this year pans out. I will say I think Sony's off to a good start this year so far, though. Solid state of play, lots of games to play on the PS5, lots of exclusives. But I think really the next answer, the real question that needs to be answered is Sony going to talk about their first party studios this year? I mean, are they really going to talk about them or not? So anyway, I'm starting to ramble at this point. I hope you guys did enjoy this video. I hope you found it informative. I really wanted to go in depth, just kind of talking to you guys about some of this, because it's really interesting insight into what's going on there with PlayStation, especially now that Jim Ryan is retiring as the CEO and Hiroki Totoki is taking over. It is the age of Totokism. It's an inside joke for, those who watch my streams. But yeah, here we go, man. We'll have to just see what happens next for PlayStation. But like I said, if you enjoyed the video or find it informative, like I always say, hit that like button. It really helps the videos more than you know. If you're new here to the channel, please consider hitting that subscribe button, hit the bell notification icon, and feel free to share this video out on top of all that. But until next time, guys, take care.